Alright, so today we're going to be covering how to reverse an integer. So this problem is straightforward. So it says if we're given an integer 1, 2, 3, we're going to have to return 3 to 1. And if we're given a negative integer, which would be negative 1, 2, 3, we're going to also have to return a negative, which would be negative 3 to 1. Also tells us to count, it says return 0 when the reverse integer overflows. Okay. So this problem, how we're going to start it off is by taking into consideration the scenario of the negative right here, when it's negative, when it should return negative and when it should not. So the way we do this is by creating a Boolean value. So first I'm going to create a Boolean value. And I'm going to set it to false. So what this is saying that it's not negative right now. And then the next condition that we're going to do is checking if it's negative or not. And if it is less than 0, if it is negative, we're going to have to turn it into positive, because when we do the reversing, we can't have a negative value when we're doing it. So to make it positive, we're gonna multiply it by -1. And right here, if it is negative, we're gonna have to switch this to true. So we're gonna do is negative, and we're gonna set it to true. Okay. Now after this is done, this first check is saying if it's negative or not. If it's negative or not. After this scenario, we're gonna have to instantiate what we're gonna return. So I'm gonna make it a long. Then I'm gonna call it result. And then we're gonna start it off. We're gonna give it an initial value of 0. Okay. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a while loop. And inside this while loop, we're going to be reversing the integer. So we're going to do while x is greater than 0. We're going to get the result. And we're going to set it to result times 10. Then we're going to add the last number of x, which would be x modulus 10. Then after we do this, we're gonna have to take the last number from the integer off. So we'll do x divided equals to 10. Okay, so I'm just gonna go over what's happening in this scenario. So if we're starting off at 0, okay, so for the example of 1, 2, 3, we're starting off at 1, 2, 3. So right here, what we're doing is we're going to get the result and we're going to multiply it by 10. So it would be 0 plus, and then with the x modulus 10, that would get 3. So we'll add 3. And then what we'll have for result would be 3. And then we're going to x divided by 10. It's going to become 1, 2. Okay. So the next time around, we're going to get the same result. We're going to multiply by 10. And that's going to become 30. And why we're multiplying by 10 is so when we add the number, so the next number we're going to have to add would be x modulus 10, which would be, since it's 1, 2, it would be 2, because 12 modulus 10 is 2. So we have to be adding 2 right here. It would be 32. If we hadn't multiplied it by 10, then it would just be 3. And then if we add 2, it would be 5, which is not reversing the integer. So right here is we're multiplying it by 10, which would give it a 0 right here, which is what we want. So when we add by 2, it would be 32. Okay. And then it would go on the same routine throughout. So after we do this, after we reverse the integer, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do a check. So we're gonna do if result is greater than integer dot max score value, we're gonna return 0. Then we're also gonna do else if it is negative, we're gonna want to return. Remember, since we instantiate it as a long and it wants us to return an int, we're gonna have to cast the int. So we're gonna do int, and then the results times -1. Okay, and then else, we're just gonna return, again, same thing, casting the results. I forgot the L. So what this is doing is, if it's greater than integer.max value right here, it says when the reverse integer overflows, we're gonna have to return 0. So we're returning 0 like it's asking us to. And then right here in this part, if it was negative, we converted it to positive for this scenario to work. So we're still taking into consideration what's negative and what's not. So right here, since it is negative, we're going to return it back to a negative value. And how we do this is by multiplying it by -1. So it could return to negative, and then we could just return it right away. And if it's not negative, then we're just going to return the value, which would be the result. So again, we start off right here. We're instantiating a Boolean value, which is meant for us to see what's negative and what's not. And right here, what we're doing is we're switching it if it is negative. And we're also making the Boolean value true if it is negative. Right here, we're instantiating a long, which is the result that we're going to return. We're starting it off at 0. We're making a while loop to reverse the integer. We're setting result. We're multiplying it by 10, so it could be so it could work for this scenario right here. And we're adding the last number of the x value that we're given, and then right here we're taking off the last digit on the x value. So we're keep looping through this until we have reversed the integer. Then right here again, we're just checking the max value and returning 0 if it's greater than that. Right here, if it is negative, we're going to return it back to a negative value and then return it. And if it's not, then we're just returning the result. And that's it.
All right, so what I just did on paper, I went ahead and coded it up. So here it's this right here, it's this part right here. So again, we're starting off with the Boolean check. We're checking if it's negative, and if it is negative, we're turning it into positive. We're right here, we're instantiating the result that we're going to return. We're making a while loop, and I already explained what's happening inside this right here in order for us to reverse it. And then if it is greater than the max value, then we're returning 0 like it's asking us to. And if it is negative, then we're returning it back to a negative value and returning it. And if it's not negative, then we're just returning it. So right, it was in the example they put 1, 2, 3. So if we run this, we're gonna get 3, 2, 1. And if it was negative 1, 2, 3, I'm gonna run this and we're gonna get negative 3, 2, 1. Alright, so I went ahead and typed in my code inside LeetCode. So it's the same exact thing, so I'm gonna go ahead and run it. We're gonna see that it was accepted. Now I'm gonna go ahead and submit the code. And again, success. So yeah, that's pretty much it.